Michelle, are you ready?
I was born ready.
She's an award-winning author, speaker, and podcast host who serves on the National Faith Advisory Council. She supported Donald J. Trump for president before it was cool, from her she shed in her beautiful backyard. This is the Michelle Moore Show.
Hi, everybody. We got a lot to cover today, so we're going to skip the introductory or intro video. I do want to remind you that Friday's show, we released a bunch of new products with Godly Granny. The sale is still going on through tomorrow night at 11:59 p.m. Central Standard Time. 5% off all the new releases, plus you can use whatever coupon code that you have. All right. Also, just heard from Jay. His wife is having a baby in the morning. So and he'll be there too. You know, he's having the baby too. He'll be more of a spectator, I guess. And so here's what's going to happen. I have 3 children. I'm getting a future daughter-in-law. And then I have 2 sons. And all 3 are going to be at the dentist tomorrow, have dental issues, and they need MAHA. So I'm going to be there tomorrow, and that's going to keep me from being here live. And so producer Ron and I just talked about it. I thought that Jay would be able to do the show. So we're going to do some kind of a educational video tomorrow, documentary tomorrow and Wednesday, and then I'll be back live Thursday and Friday. Mark Taylor will be here Monday. Today we have quite the show for you. I don't even know what all we're going to cover and what all is going to come out of these guys' mouths. Y'all might need to sit down a minute, because what I've already heard, it's jaw dropping and it's ugly. And so here's my commitment. My commitment is to the truth. Okay. My commitment is not to any president or any movement. My commitment is just, what is the truth? And so there's been a lot of things that are conflicting. There's a lot of confusion. We know who the author of confusion is. And so there's just a lot of stuff that's going on. And so I work really closely with Steve Jarvis, and he has been helping me to understand when I see a video, he kind of translates it. And he helps me understand where the lie is, or that's just not true. And this can't be possible. And this is why. And well, why are they lying, Steve? Don't know yet. And so, they're doing this. And so, or I'll bring him a video and we'll talk about it. He'll go, but at the end of the day, what does that matter if they're still chemtrailing us? You know, keep first things first, like, right. And then also keep your eye on the ball as to what's really important. Well, Friday, there was an event at the South Lawn in DC, and it was a gathering of American farmers with President Trump. And there was a lot that was said in that event. And so we're going to go through that with 2 different men. We're going to go at the same time who know one another. They're pretty good friends. They become good friends from what I can tell. And that is, of course, our 5th generation farmer and former MAHA, and he says former MAGA member, Steve Jarvis. Many of you know who he is. He's been on the show many times. When he left MAHA, he came on the Michelle Moore Show, I think it was the very next day, and said, why? I said, why? And then he announced during that show that he had left MAGA. Well, now we have lifelong rancher Bryan Mussard. Now, let me tell you a little bit about Bryan Mussard. I've made some notes, okay? Lifelong rancher and has been involved in every segment of the beef industry, from calving, I think it means calving. And then I'm probably butchering that. Feeding, processing, manufacturing, wholesale, and resale. He was also RFK Jr.'s ranch advisor and spent most of his time communicating with RFK Jr. and his team. By the way, I want to remind you that RFK Jr. came to Steve Jarvis's farm, 6 months ago at the most? And so he spent most of his time communicating with RFK Jr. and his team, and then returning. And by the way, they were working on returning the saturated fats into our diets and getting it back into the dietary guidelines. Remember the whole flipping of the food pyramid, and so lots of lies and all of that. And so he was very instrumental in getting that kind of handled and taken care of through educating them and helping them. So he's on the show today for the first time. His name's Bryan Mussard. And so Steve and Bryan, we're going to welcome both of them. Many people talking about how they love Steve, and looking forward to hearing what he has to say. I think you're going to be very surprised to hear what Bryan Mussard has to say as well. So let's go on ahead, Producer Ron, and bring them in and welcome them. And I appreciate both gentlemen being with us today. Hi, Bryan. Hi, Steve.
Hey.
How you doing?
Doing great. Okay, I want to start with Steve and kind of back up for a minute because, there's going to be people that see today's show that have never seen Steve. And so, Steve, you were a MAHA member. And is that how you met Bryan, or did you already know Bryan ahead of time?
No, we met actually in May. We both were invited to DC to speak in DC about agriculture and about, I had written a plan to create 1 million new 40-acre farms. Mine's more on the vegetable side, the small farm, 40-acre farm. That was my plan, create new processing centers, and then change school lunches, change the national defense food for the military, things like that, and also change hospital foods. So that we met, that was the first time we met. And Bryan is the expert rancher, and I tell you can't say enough about Bryan. If anybody, Bryan, when he speaks about ranching, this guy knows every detail of it, all the way through, all the way from calving, all the way to, the end product. And he knows about nutrient density of beef and all this stuff and saturated fats and all this stuff. So when we met, we really hit it off. And so that's how we became friends.
Okay. Makes sense. All right. So why, for those that are watching, when you left MAHA, why did you leave MAHA?
Well, I left MAHA because they're driving the wrong direction, because they weren't doing anything. Because number one in my farm plan, I've said this on your show before, number one in my farm plan, we have to stop the chemtrails. We have to stop the spraying of our skies because it's poisoning the ground. And listen, the one thing about it, RFK came to my farm. Here's the deal. I'm not with him anymore. I'm not with MAHA. I'm not with President Trump. For him to come to my farm, RFK, they don't spend $250,000 for him to stop at a little farm. And if this person is not legit, that's what gives me the credibility about what I'm trying to say. And the issue is I wrote a farm plan to create, because the small farm is what sustained America, and ranchers like Bryan have sustained America and fed the world, actually. And that's the issue. The issue is I noticed in December, Bryan and I were trying to get a meeting with President Trump and the Secretary of Treasury, because we had a plan called the PED plan that he and I worked on. It was 1 through 31. And we said, if we got 1 through 7 done, that it would change American agriculture for the next 100 years. And nothing happened out of that. And so that is the issue. That's the reason I left. When I realized, I left about the 16th of December. We thought we were going to get a meeting with President Trump by December 22nd. And I told Bryan, I don't think it's going to happen. And so. All
right. Okay. All right. So Bryan, you were contacted early on and you were asked to serve as really the main marketer and mouthpiece for MAHA. Is that so?
Yeah, that's the meeting that Steve and I had met on. I was invited to come back and asked to be the lead spokesman for ag, and especially for the ranching side of it. And so went back and jumped through all the hoops and spent the time, went back there and said, okay, you're going to be got the media training to do it. And then that was the end of the communication at all. And so nobody said anything, they just dropped. And it just because I think because I wasn't on the same agenda, I definitely brought a different point of view than where the narrative was heading. So similar reasons why MAHA, they have their own different path, and it just didn't fit the mainstream agriculture. Whether you're a farmer or a rancher, you got to move the entire industry a couple degrees if we're going to make significant changes.
All right. So when you come in and you do this studying for the media training, and what do you think it was that they heard? Can you kind of give us a few details on this? Can you kind of give us an idea of what you think you thought was the way to go that was different than what they wanted to do?
Well, I think I've had the same message since the night that Secretary Kennedy, when he was the candidate, asked me to be his ranch advisor. I haven't changed at all. And I really feel like MAHA really embraced that it was the big four packers that has destroyed small farms and ranchers. They all decided to go get into the business and take it over and run the little guys out of business. And I shared with them that is not what has happened. And I was the only one at that point that competed with the big four packers. I sell meat wholesale against the big four packers every day. They don't care that I'm in business. They don't try to drive me out of business. And I try to share what the other problems were within agriculture that we could fix. And nobody was interested in that. The narrative was already set. We're going to go after these guys. And now all the secretaries have bought into that narrative. They have zero proof. They've investigated the Packers for 40 years. I'm not saying I like them.
Wait a minute. I'm sorry to interrupt, but are you saying that the White House is going after the small farmers?
No, not at all.
You mean they're not interested in helping the small farmers?
Right. They're only interested in the small farmers have all run to them, to DC. The message is already set. Once a narrative gets set, the whole thing almost has to play out before people realize what's going on. But they've ingested this concept that the big four packers have destroyed small farms and ranches and drove everybody out of business. And that's not true. They don't know why that happened. There is four big packers, but nobody was interested in how we ended up with four big packers, how we ended up with 1 million head chicken farms. Nobody's interested in that. If you don't know why we have four big packers, you're never going to be able to get rid of them.
Okay. All right. That's interesting. And I've been under the impression that as the same as well, that it was the four big packers that have really impacted the farmers through big ag and through our country, and that's why so many farmers are shutting down and getting out of business, and in many cases committing suicide, unfortunately, and very sadly, and tragically. So this is very interesting. So you get in there and you find out that your talking points and your opinions are completely different than what the White House wants to talk about, and in the direction they want to actually go and do something about.
Yeah, the USDA created the four big packers. The USDA has done more to destroy rural America, regenerative ags, and small farms and ranches than any other agency in DC. And they're supposed to be watching out for us. They're the ones who created it. Nobody wants to talk about that. Nobody wants to know how they did that or why they did it. They don't even know.
Okay. Well, probably has to do with the video we're going to look at in a little bit because there's a bigger plan. Okay. So, all right. I want to start with Friday's event. And so, like I said at the very beginning, there was an event at the White House on the South Lawn and there was a gathering of American farmers. President Trump was there and Brooke Rollins. So many times that Steve Jarvis has been here on the show, you've probably heard the name Brooke Rollins many times. And Steve's got kind of a background with her that he knows about and talks about. And so I'm very familiar with when she was in ag when it comes to Texas, the state of Texas, and says that she was one of the worst things that ever happened to the state of Texas when it comes to agriculture. Steve, I don't want to put words in your mouth. Have I left anything out?
No, but I want to back up just a minute because I want to explain this to your viewers a little bit about the narrative thing in DC. Once they start running this narrative, you got to be in on it. So here was the narrative. Well, I came to DC the day I met Bryan because he was running the thing, it was the MAHA Institute. It was the first day it was birthed. And I was speaking there and I said, listen, I don't want to fight Bayer and Monsanto. I'm not going to get in the pesticide fight. I said, listen, my farm plan to create 1 million new 40-acre farms, we won't use them. The processing plants won't be allowed to process the food that's coming out of there. So let's start a whole new system and let's leave the big guys alone. But that's not the narrative they wanted. They wanted this fight. And I told them I'm out. I won't do it. And since I wasn't in that, and they said, Steve, your farm plan's too big, which my farm plan at that time was $375 billion a year. But yet we spend all this time and all this energy fighting these big guys. And I said, no, I don't want to do it. And I wasn't part of the narrative, so I was out.
All right, well, let's talk about some basic math that Bryan was talking with me about just prior to the show and going live. He says, they gave $12 billion. You'll hear Trump talk about that in a minute in a video. And so how much was your farm plan?
$375 billion.
$375 billion. Okay, so a month's worth of being at war. Or so. Okay. So, okay. But they said it was too much. I'm doing Bryan's math. So it's 1.2 billion a day to be at war. And if that's the case, then you're talking, I'm just doing Bryan math And so he broke it down for me real good and said, you know, if there was really a plan to save agriculture, they could do that. I mean, they were able to go to war and spend, you know, 1.2 billion a day while we're at war. So why can't we fix agriculture? And so I'm just doing some Bryan math that Bryan taught me. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and move on to Friday's show or Friday's event. There's a video, obviously, of the recording of what all was said. And Steve and Bryan want to take you through some different clips and show you some things and discuss what exactly is the truth versus what's not the truth. And so let's look at the very first one, producer Ron.
And rain or shine, and you don't mind rain, shine. The one thing about farmers, they don't care about that weather. They get out there, it makes no difference. But rain or shine, no one is more grit or greater spirit than the American farmer. We love the American farmer. I just gave you $12 billion. I don't know if you know that or not.
Okay.
So, Trump keeps bragging about this $12 billion. And the issue is, and Bryan's going to talk about it from the cattle ranch side, I'm more in the vegetable world, but I do keep up with what's going on in the grain world. And just so everybody knows, the corn growers in the United States lost 16 billion. All right. They lost 16 billion. So if you just took the 12 billion and gave it to the corn growers, there's still 4 billion in the hole. And the soybean growers had a contract under Joe Biden for $24 billion a year in soybean. They lost a complete contract, and we'll get into that later in this video. But then, so if you gave the soybean growers 12 billion, and then Trump finally got 12 billion sold, so they basically broke even. And we haven't even got the cotton, we haven't got the rice, we haven't got the milo, we haven't got the wheat. So this is what people need to understand. When these numbers are spewed out, this 12 billion, it's nothing. It's peanuts.
Okay, this is what I'm talking about. You translating for me the different things that we see, because I don't think most Americans would ever know this. And so this is why I've heard you say many times, this is a joke. And so this would be an example of this is a joke. $12 billion is a joke. It's not, he's not even serious.
It's a joke.
Okay. So what, but here's the question I have about that though. What about, like, you know, we're getting ready to have the farm bill passed and there's going to be money there. So will that kind of help to make up? Maybe he's just taking 12 billion and it's part of it. And then money comes from the farm bill and you've got different things. I mean, is there any chance that could be going on?
Listen, let's talk about this whole farm bill when we get to that segment, because there's so much to say about that. But Bryan should repeat about this $12 billion, about what he told us, because I didn't think I'd do the math the way he was doing it, talking about the $12 billion. And Bryan knows a lot more too about what the cattle rancher's getting on this.
Okay.
$12 billion.
All right. So Bryan, share with us.
Well, what I shared with you is, you know, if you listen to how he said that and how he has said it every time, he's bragging, like Steve says, of, hey, I gave you $12 billion. You don't even appreciate that. He doesn't know how much that is. I mean, we've done the math. Steve broke it down. That's $330,000 per county is not a lot of money. Most ranchers and farmers each have between $300,000 and $500,000 worth of debt. So that's one guy per county. So maybe 50, you know what I mean? It's not a lot of money. And if you're going to spend $1.2 billion per day in a war, you just gave the farmers 10 days worth of aid that you destroyed with the tariffs in 2025.
Wow. Okay. All right. Let's move on. Next clip, producer Ron.
EPA administrator is doing such an incredible job. He's getting those costs down for you, and he's always protecting the environment, but he does it quickly. A real superstar, Lee Zeldin. Thank you, Lee. Great job.
Yeah, Bryan, you want to talk about Lee Zeldin, or you want me to talk first?
He always does a great job protecting the environment. He's aware of the geoengineering that's going on.
That's right.
He said he was going to investigate it when he got in there. He's done nothing. He's not come up with a report, with an update. Nothing has stopped. He hasn't come out. I mean, they can go to war overnight. Lee Zeldin can come out and say, hey, we are aware of these things. We have all the data on things. We're stopping them right now, and inform the public what's going on, because the chemtrails, the geoengineering has been done to the public without their consent for years now. And why is this guy that supposedly President Trump says takes care of the environment every day? They're spraying us every single day. There's no such thing as organic food anymore.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
And let me just say this too about Lee Zeldin. I was supposed to have a meeting with Lee Zeldin about this issue because number one in my farm plan is to stop this stuff that's coming out of the skies. Bryan can tell you that over there where he lives, a storm will be coming in to rain in that region and it'll dry up. They can dry things up and they can make it rain, and Rainmaker and all those guys, they got to be doing it backwards or they're doing it on purpose. So this is the issue. And Lee Zeldin has admitted this, and there's a lawsuit coming against Lee Zeldin and his office. It's called the GEOfight.com. That website is three big law firms in the U.S. that are going to sue the federal government over this issue. And the reason they can sue is because Lee Zeldin admitted that, yes, we are spraying our nation. And if you look the patents up, so he admitted it. So he admits the crime, but it's like, oh, we're going to get to it. No, you're not going to get to nothing.
Okay. All right. So Bryan, KM Sunshine says, so basically the tariffs are doing nothing but hurting the farmers?
Yeah. And I don't have I wasn't against tariffs at all, because being involved in the beef industry, and this would have been probably a decade ago, Japan was charging us 85% tariff on our beef going into Japan, and they were charging Australia, I believe, you can't, not quite the number, 35% tariff. And so we were asking for an equal playing field. So we weren't demanding. So we're not the only country that charges a tariff. Every country charges tariffs to protect their own production. But
Okay.
that is what did so much harm to the farmers. And $12 billion is a slap in the face for President Trump to come out and say you're welcome when he caused them, I don't know what it is, Steve, close to 10 times that amount of money in loss.
Oh, it's unbelievable, because if you go through, my understanding is that if you take the farming group and basically what it is, the potato growers, lettuce growers, those guys are not included in this. And what people have to understand, and I heard this statistic the other day, that only 2 to 5% of all the farming in America goes on to people's plates. What that means is the rest of it is all going to be corn, which is ethanol, and we're going to talk about that. Ethanol should not be in the farm bill. It's E15. Trump brags about E15 fuel. That shouldn't be in the farm bill, because ethanol is not food. And that's what people don't understand. My understanding is the state of Iowa, which is one of the biggest farm states, is importing 95% of every bit of the food that people eat in that state. So if you start doing the math on this stuff and you start laying it out, it's in this $12 billion number, because you got cotton, you've got rice, you've got milo, you've got wheat, and you've got the corn and the soybean. My understanding is if you bunch them all together, they all lost $450 an acre.
All right, Steve. So what was the country that was a foreign country last August that received money from President Trump?
Argentina.
And Argentina got how much money?
Well, they doubled it. How much is it, Bryan? 40? Was it 40?
Yeah, it was 40 billion.
Mm-hmm.
It was 20. It was 20 billion originally.
Yeah, and then they
doubled
doubled
it. And now he's quadrupled the imports from Argentina, which we're going to talk about this. When you start talking about this trade stuff, and President Trump talks about trade like a drunk banker, because the thing about it is most of us don't understand what these trades and all these things do. But basically, the trades and tariffs and all the farming and the big farming in America is all for big trades and making moves overseas. It's not about making America strong. And if you want to make America strong, you got to have food. And ethanol is not food, and everybody's sick of GMO products. And so most of the food, most things that are grown here, and let's face it, so many people have wheat allergies and all this stuff, and it's because of all the sprays that they use on them.
Yeah, and what they're doing to the food. Yeah. Okay, so let's look at the next clip from Friday.
Getting right, Zippy? From day one, he liked Trump. He said, well, I don't know, but I just had a good meeting with him. I'm going to go with Trump, right? That was in 2015. And very special thanks to the proud young parents of two beloved American institutions, Future Farmers of America and 4-H. Too grateful.
The reason I pulled this clip out, Bryan, is because I know you know this too. 4-H is a joke, because the issue is about 4-H. a girl raises a lamb or a guy raises a pig or a steer, and then that thing goes to auction. He buys this steer or this lamb for way more, 10 times market price. They go and auctions off. John Deere, Caterpillar, somebody, the big feed store down the road goes in. They pay what, $30,000 for the thing. It's not realistic agricultural numbers. And so this 4-H, these people show these animals and do all this. It's not realistic. And that I've always been against this. And then the FFA, Michelle, I sent you the clip, and everybody can look this up themselves. FFA does not stand for, they've expanded what they say they are. FFA is not about growing food anymore. It's more about science and technology. And here's the issue about that. The reason they want the science and technology is because everything, they want all these farmers to digitize everything. They wanted to, I was one of the first farms that they wanted to tokenize my dirt. And that's what they wanted. They want to, all these people coming out of FFA now, they're going to EPA to work on water, and they're going to all these rules and regulations, but none of them out of FFA or 4-H are really going to ranching or really going into agriculture or really growing food.
Okay. We have a viewer off of YouTube that says Lee Zeldin was acknowledging the chemtrails and saying that we are going to take care of this. He has since, this has all since been deleted, is what the viewer says. Okay, so let's look at the next clip from Friday's event on the South Lawn of DC.
4-H. Too great. For 4 disastrous years before I took office, Sleepy Joe Biden and the Democrats in Congress crushed America's farmers with the worst inflation in the history of our country. Prices were going through the roof. So bad, it was so bad what they had done to our country, and by the way, in so many other ways too, borders and everything else. But they crippled the American agriculture industry with brutal restrictions and failed to negotiate even a single new trade deal on your behalf. Not one trade deal was negotiated on your behalf during the Biden administration, and we happen to be the exact opposite. We have so many trade deals, we don't know what the hell to do with them. We need more lawyers. But now the American farmers, ranchers, growers, and producers once again have a true friend and champion in the Oval Office. And in my first year back in the White House, farm income has soared by 20% very quickly.
Okay, is that true? Has farm income increased by 20%?
Brian, you address that. You're in the game.
Oh, that may be my least favorite statement he's made. Trump owned COVID. He was there during COVID. He knew the real numbers during COVID. He knew the lies about COVID while he was there, because I listened to him speak during that. He spent $6.73 trillion in 6 months, more than any president in history. Yet he refuses to accept responsibility of the inflation that caused, the inflationary interest that caused. He blames Biden for the $8 trillion that he printed. We got stuck paying the bill. Our interest rate went from 4% to 9.85%. He was part of that. So he played a larger role. He destroyed more wealth during COVID and opened the gateway for President Biden than any other president in history. And so we went from paying $97,000 a year in our operating loan to $360,000 a year in our operating loan. That just wipes out any kind of marketing, any kind of debt reduction, any kind of equipment replacement. And that's, when I say me, that's everybody. And he was part of that. So for him to brag about what he did and how bad Biden was, he totally ignores what he did in part of that. I mean, that inflationary, ag pays more inflationary costs than anybody else. We still pay the exact same inflationary. Take your average, a gal that works at a bank or someone that works at a bank or at a car dealership or wherever. We're all paying those inflationary costs when you start printing money. But then ag pays the interest on their operating loans. When you go buy equipment, we buy a lot of equipment. Plus, we're paying these operating loans, and those are variable interest rates, so it runs right with inflation. We pay the bulk of that back, and he refuses to acknowledge that. So again, He slaps us in the face by saying how wonderful he is when he's done more to destroy agriculture the 4 years he was in there than anybody else in history. He did it quicker than anybody.
All right. I kind of go back also. I just keep thinking back to the $12 billion that he says, well, I just gave you $12 billion. But yet he gave another country $40 billion, which is our American farmers' competitors. I hope everybody understands that. This is our competitor. For ours as in our American farmers, that is our farmers here in America. They're direct competitors. Am I correct?
Well, you are correct. And the thing about it is most people don't realize, and Brooke Rollins didn't even realize this till I sent it through the food chain to get to her, that we have a veteran to farm program system that is $40 billion a year in Ukraine. So they didn't even know that. Joe Biden set that up, $40 billion a year. And that if you make it off the rototiller of the Russian front lines, then you get to go into the vet farmer program in Ukraine. So this money, this is what we're talking about, all this money that's blowing through. And I knew, Brian, like you asked me earlier, Michelle, how did I know that there wasn't 20%, they're making 20% more money? Because Brian gives a perfect example, because all the ranchers, they're loans. And let's face it, Brian, just what I do, the tariffs and stuff, parts for tractors, parts for mowers, fertilizer distributors, all those things like that, they're all higher. And the farmer and rancher pays both directions on that stuff.
Okay. It's interesting, which probably those parts were very difficult to get during COVID as well. So that hurts, not just, we were hearing all about airplanes, but then it also hurts the farmers because they can't even get the parts to fix their tractors. Okay. All right. Interesting. All right. Let's look at Friday, the next clip from Friday's gathering of American farmers on the South Lawn in DC. President Trump talking to them. Let's take a look.
With the help of Republicans in Congress, we passed the largest tax cuts in American history. Already 45% of filers have taken advantage of our new tax provisions, with an average refund so far of almost $5,000, a record. In fact, we passed them, and people are just starting to see how important they are.
Go ahead, right. Brian. Go ahead, Brian.
Agriculture doesn't really even most agriculture doesn't pay taxes because we lose so much money every year. And so for him to say, we're making $5,000 back, we don't ever pay that anywhere. Our losses have been, we started a new business, the beef business. Our losses have been between $350,000 and $733,000 for the last 3 years. We don't need to tax. The tax breaks don't affect us.
Okay. So why would he say that? Nobody's really getting that. Is it just a complete inaccuracy, a complete lie? Misleading the people? What is going on?
He's lying. And so Brian's talking about it from a big cattle rancher perspective. We're going to talk about it from a small farmer, 10-acre farmer perspective, 10 to 40 acre farmer perspective. I just bought diesel fuel this week, $3,000 for that won't run me my whole year, but $3,000. So even if I did get $5,000, and I didn't make any money last year anyway on my farming, I made my input cost was about $17,000, and I sold about $19,000, $20,000. So my input cost, I didn't make any profit. I didn't pay any taxes in on what I'm farming. And if I would have gotten $5,000, I just ordered fertilizer this morning. It's going to be about another $3,000 because I'm putting all my fields into alfalfa, so I'm not growing food for the public anymore. But this is the understanding of, here's a small operation like me. $5,000 is nothing. It won't do anything. It won't run my whole farm for the year on fuel and fertilizer.
Okay. All right. Interesting. All right. Next clip from Friday's event.
Made the small business tax deduction permanent, benefiting 98% of America's farmers and ranchers. And thanks to bonus depreciation, farmers can now deduct 100% of the cost of new tractors and all equipment in the first year. In other words, you buy a tractor, you deduct the whole price. Normally it goes over a 38-year period. This is slightly better.
Okay.
38 years.
You go ahead, Brian. You go ahead on that one.
38 years. No one deducts a tractor for 38 years.
This is reminding me of the 50-year mortgage that he was
Yeah,
talking about.
I was just getting ready to say that. That's what
Oh.
he didn't say what's going on. He said what's coming. You're gonna have to deduct this tractor for 38 years and pay for your 50-year mortgage because we're sending our money overseas. I love you, farmers.
So I don't know if you know this, but I was 30 years in the real estate industry, and the very fact that anybody would be talking about a 50-year mortgage just so that our children could afford to be able to purchase a home and get out of, mom and dad's basements, is complete insanity. And people should be ashamed of themselves to even entertain that. I don't even entertain a 30-year mortgage, because if you knew the numbers of what you end up paying, those that really understand, it's complete insanity. And so you might pay $200,000 for a home that you're going to end up paying $500,000 for if you were to pay out 30 years worth of loans. You pay more than double in most cases on this, and it's insane. And now you're talking about a 50-year loan. It's completely insane. And so now that you're talking about this, makes sense that you're going to be able to pay for it for the next 38 years.
Okay, so I just bought a brand new piece of equipment 4 years ago, and the way that I've always done it. Now, when he said 38 years, I lost my mind. I was like, 38 years? I've never heard that in my entire life. And I've always had the option to write it off the first year. I could, if I had record crops and made a big amount of money, because I had a construction company as well, because I had to, because I couldn't make it farming. But if I made a bunch of money, I could have written the whole entire piece of equipment off the first year, or I could depreciate it out over 4. That's the way it's always been in my life. I've got a piece of equipment right now. I'd set it up on a 4-year depreciation, because that way it offsets my cost on the machine. And that's the way I did it. But I could have done it the first year, but it doesn't benefit you. If you write it off the first year, then you don't get it to write off any of it the next year. And so stretching it out like he's talking about, he's lying.
Okay. All right. Bryan, you got anything you want to add before we go on to the next clip?
No, let's go to the next clip. I think Steve did a pretty good job.
All right, let's look.
Very importantly, we saved 2 million American farms from extinction by virtually ending the unfair estate tax. We've ended the estate tax, or as they call it, the death tax, and you can now keep your family farms in the family. We had a problem.
I did have something I wanted to say. Forgot. You brought it up. President, you think about that. You're going to pay $500,000 for a $200,000 house in a 30-year mortgage, and everybody's aware of that. You're going to pay $500,000 if you're just renting. People can't afford to even buy the $200,000 house, and then to add on to that, President Trump knew BlackRock was buying all these houses up during COVID while he was president and did nothing about it. So he was part of that. He was part of that whole thing too. He's been strip mining the American people for a long time.
Every real estate agent knew about it. So there's no way he didn't know. There's no way. So you make a great point. I never thought about it before, but now that you're saying that, every real estate agent knew. I knew. We all knew. And there's no way around it, because they were buying up homes in every neighborhood across America. And so that was the problem, is you would represent a buyer, and the buyer would end up having to put in 12, 13, 14 different offers on 12, 13, 14 different homes, because they kept not getting it, because they kept going up against BlackRock. And so we all knew that it was investors coming in and purchasing up a lot of this real estate, but they would win because the seller, as a listing agent, you have to present all the offers to the seller. And guess who would always win? Because they'd come in above asking price, $10,000, $20,000 a home. Just so everybody understands and knows what was going on. It was going on all over Nashville at that time. Never thought about that, but yeah, there's no way that President Trump wouldn't have known. There's just no way. Okay. All right. I never thought about it, but wow. Okay. All right. Let's move on to the next clip.
Well, let Bryan, Bryan, I want you to comment on this estate thing, because because the estate tax deal is a good thing, but the time duration is this permanent. What does permanent mean?
Permanent means 3 years until the next administration. we've gone through this estate tax thing every 4 years, or whenever there's a Republican in there, they either get it knocked down or they get it permanently eliminated. Well, permanent only means until the next administration comes in and puts it back in there. Permanent in Washington, D.C. is 3 years typically. And so he can say that, and that's why I didn't get excited about it. Most farm groups were back there to really applaud him for eliminating it. And it's a good thing. I'm not saying it's not a good thing, but it's not permanent. You can't tell people it's permanent. I mean, you should be telling people, well, we're going to eliminate it for the next 3 years. You know, you don't know what will happen after that. We can't do it permanently.
And what this does is says that if a farmer passes away, it can be passed on to their children and or whomever they decide, and that there's no estate tax that is charged at that time.
Correct.
Okay, just want to make sure everybody understands. Kazadu says, I'm so tired of the corruption. I'm so tired of the lies. I'm so tired of the wasted speeches with the wasted words and no action. So when does it end? Deborah West says, when we bought our home on a 30-year loan in 1991, we paid it off in 9 years by paying double mortgage payments every single month. The problem, though, Deborah, is that most people can barely pay the mortgage note. They can't do, especially back then. I mean, that might have been a little bit more doable. But today, most people can't pay their mortgage and keep up with their utilities and afford today's gas prices that we're supposed to be sucking it up because it's higher. And then per President Trump. And we're also having higher food prices. And so most people are struggling and working more than one job. They're working 2 and 3, both parents and, both mom and dad are working in most cases and say that they can't even afford to be able to homeschool their kids. And so it's a very unfortunate situation. Kazadu says, Steve and Bryan, what do you think about the fines or the fires that are going on in Nebraska? Steve, were you able to confirm that that's going on?
It is going on, but I did not talk to any of the ranchers. Bryan, you might know some ranchers down there in that country.
Yeah, I talked to, we feed cattle in Nebraska, and as of 2 weeks ago, it had burnt 726,000 acres, and it started with high winds and power line went down, and with 65-mile-an-hour winds. Sorry, I don't know what the winds were, but when that fire started overnight, it was 65 miles it had spread. And that's a big old wide front to be burning.
Okay. All right. Interesting. She was asking, in all the farming land that has been destroyed, I think it was a direct energy weapon, just like what happened in Hawaii and Louisiana. What are your thoughts? You're saying you think that it was really a electrical wire that went down, winds were high overnight, and that's how it took off.
That's what my friend that lives down there said happened, and I have confirmed that with another friend that lives in Nebraska too. And hell, we've had high winds here for all winter long. It just blows and blows and blows, and so I feel very fortunate that it hasn't happened here.
Well, let me just say this too about this rainmaker and cloud seeding, and they always bring this up, Bryan. Right? They always say we're going to help the farmer and rancher by cloud seeding. Well, if they could do such a damn good job, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have said that word. But if they could do such a good job, why wouldn't they crank up the rain right over the top of that fire, right? No, Nebraska's too dry. Montana's too dry. Wyoming's too dry. Idaho, where I am, there's no snowpack above me here. I live in the mountains. There's no snowpack. It's bone dry.
Okay, well, that's a good point.
That gets you into geoengineering. I mean, they're spraying in the solar aerosol injection and the solar radiation management. That's all supposed to block out the sun, protect the earth. The earth doesn't exist without the sun. They have to spray metals. They can't push the weather around without metal and moisture. Then they can use the next rad station. They can use the electromagnetic stations to push the weather around. They can create weather, but they have to have metal in the atmosphere to move that around. And that's what our point is they're controlling and manipulating the weather. The cloud seeding thing is a joke. They use the cloud seeding thing to cover up the geoengineering. And most farmers buy into it. They say they're doing it for us, and everybody's going, oh, great, they're doing it for us. And everybody says, yay for the farmer. It's not about that at all. It's this global geoengineering thing is about weather control, and we're all suffering from it.
Yeah, and the UN is involved. I mean, it's global.
Mhm.
This is a big deal.
Now, Steve's the master on that. He knows it all.
Well, Nebraska shouldn't be that dry. I mean, not in March. I mean, Nebraska should have more moisture on the ground.
Well, last year, I don't know about you guys, but in our area, we went more days in a row. It was months without water. It was insane. Everybody's grass died. I'm looking to see if our grass even comes back this year because of the drought from last year. And so it was horrifically dry. And so all throughout the summer, I'm talking like 3 months, we might have had a day or two of rain, period. And so, yeah, I mean, if they really wanted to fix it, and it was really for our good or for the farmers' good, then we wouldn't have these problems. Like you said, why wouldn't they just fix up a little storm and take this fire out? And so this is interesting. You guys have some interesting perspectives and make some great points. Let's move on to the next clip from Friday's event.
The Republicans delivered for the farmers, and it was not easy because the opposition to farmers by Democrats is very strong. Thanks to our trade deals, you're now sending over $40 billion in American soybeans to China. I want to thank President Xi of China because we had a deal at 20, and I said, could you do me a favor? It's a big place. Could you double it? And he said, what are you talking about? I said, could you make it 40 instead of 20? And he overrode all of his people. He said, all right, I'll do it. And you got 40.
Steve?
So the thing about it is, if you go back and look through history, pretty much over about the last 7 years, it's been about $24 billion. That's what soybean growers have contracted with China. That's what it's done. Whenever Trump did the tariffs and used farmers and ranchers as cannon fodder with China, China just said, well, we're not going to buy. I cannot find anywhere that is true, that he sold $40 billion worth of soybean. I don't believe that's true. I believe he's lying. I believe that at best he got the $24 billion contract back, and it's really too late in the game.
Brad, what about you? Do you know anything about this?
I don't. I'm not in the farm world at all. I would tend to agree with Steve on that. Where's the news coverage of that? I haven't heard USDA say anything. I haven't heard any farm news, anything to validate that number. Yeah,
okay.
There's nothing.
All right, next clip. Wow.
Shipped to China in record amounts, and we expanded markets for American beef, dairy products, biofuels across Asia, Europe, South America, like we've never had before. Our farmers and agricultural producers do not want handouts. They really don't. The farmers come to my office a lot, and they just, sir, please just give us a level playing field. Others want more than that. They want everything.
All right, level playing field, Bryan.
So level playing field, what I came up with for candidate Kennedy, and then after I met Steve, showed Steve, I've shown this to SBA. Kelly Loeffler has read it. Brooke Rollins has read it. Secretary Kennedy has read it. A level playing field means you've got to pull agriculture, make them exempt from these inflationary periods from money printing. And what that means is you've got to put in a maximum interest rate for agriculture so that we can operate at a 4% margin interest rate. If he wants to go start 10 more wars and print another $30 trillion, that's fine, but we can't pay that bill or you destroy food. And so that's, to me, I could not figure out, we got into the beef industry and I'm trying to figure out how in the world do you create cheap food for consumers and stay in business. We can't sell it cheap. There's a lot of people between the farmer and the consumer.
Yeah.
And to keep us in business, we can't pay these inflationary interest rates plus all the other inflationary costs that we talked about earlier on top of that. And so I presented a plan to them, maximum 4% interest, and then what Secretary Kennedy liked and MAHA team liked too is you can drop that down to 1% if you add some regenerative ag practices that anybody can do. It's not going to put you out of production, and it wasn't a mandate. It was an option. It was here. If you want to apply better farming practices, better ranching practices, better cattle feeding practices, you can get your interest dropped down because you're raising better food for people. All three of those secretaries saw that. All three of them endorsed it. Secretary Rollins said, that's great. Help me with this, but we have to get Secretary Bessent, Treasury, to sign off on it. We can't do anything about interest rates. And I said, I know that, but we need to have the conversation. And Secretary Kennedy is on board, SBA is on board. Neither one of them can step on Secretary Rollins' toes because it has to come out of USDA. And we have heard crickets from USDA on that. And if President Trump would have said something like that in his speech, if they would have addressed that in his speech, then that's real leveling the playing field. That puts your people who are out there 7 days a week in the wind, in the fires, in the rain, in the snow, in the cold weather. They're doing it every day and getting paid like $1.83 an hour if you add up all their hours. That gives them the opportunity to stay in business. None of them will carry it forward. So that tells me the administration is not serious. That's why the $12 billion is a slap in the face. The estate tax is a joke. It's great. Again, Steve and I both said we don't disagree with that, but you can't say it's permanent when permanent means 3 years from now. You could have fixed interest rates for agriculture and helped everybody stay in business. So when you're losing 17 to 20,000 farmers every year from all the practices the USDA and the federal government have put in place, and you're not willing to do that, that doesn't cost them any money. We're not asking for $127 billion. We're just saying, stop charging us all the interest rates for your wars and your fraud and everything else you're doing. And they don't want to do that. They're not serious about it. And they're all insulated. All these leaders in DC are all insulated from the real problems, and they can't fix it.
Well, and if people want to see the PED plan, the 1 through 31 that Bryan and I wrote, you can go to my website. It's sas-usa.com. You go down to the bottom and under important links, my farm plan is in there. The PED plan is in there. The declaration for farmers and ranchers to be able to sell food to their neighbor without the government involvement, that's in there. And after you go through and realize the government's not good, you're going to need it because I have a book on joy. So you'll need that because you're going to be depressed after looking and reading all that stuff that the government didn't do. And then if you wind up becoming not healthy, there's a brand new book in there on healing. So that was a sales pitch.
Okay.
But the PED plan, if Bryan, if we could have just got the interest done, it would have changed him. I mean, you would have changed the agriculture in American history.
That's a real tangible thing that we can look to. That makes a difference.
Cost the taxpayers a dime. That's what Bryan and I kept saying that to them.
It prevents future bailouts. Farmers and ranchers need bailed out when we get stuck paying for all this inflationary interest. And if you eliminate that, then the government's not having to bail them out and brag about $12 billion every month, which they're going to have to be doing. The USDA is out of money because they've been bailing out farmers forever. They're not changing the plans. They're not changing the subsidy plan. If they would get the subsidy thing, change that completely, get it off the 4 major crops and allow people to raise other crops and allow people to apply for crop insurance for other crops. If you don't raise the 4 main ones, you can't even get crop insurance. That's what locks us into the corn and the soybeans and the wheat being right there, having so much volume, so dependent on exports because you can't get crop insurance for any other crop. Spread that out. That's leveling the playing field. Give people an interest rate that they can afford to go out and make a living doing. They can take that risk, but that interest rate is no different than what you were talking about housing, Michelle. Young farmers aren't going to go out there. They can't afford to go pay that kind of interest and buy all this brand new equipment and have zero, confidence that the government's going to stay out of their way or protect them from going out of business.
Okay. While we're on the topic of Kelly Loeffler, what would you like to share about her, Bryan? I know you said most people don't know who she is. I know she's out of Georgia. It's my understanding she lives in the largest home in the state. But what is it that you would like to share with your experience, your personal experience of dealing with her and the others there?
Well, her staff has worked their butt off to get this interest plan done. They have given it to her. She will not broach the subject with Secretary Rollins. That's disappointing. That means you have no interest in doing it, or you're totally immune or insulated from it, and it doesn't mean anything to you. That's the disappointment. Secretary Kennedy cannot push that through from HHS. He can't. That's not USDA. Is it the department that has to go through? He's all for it, but he can't take it across the finish line. Secretary Rollins does. She has the power to do that, and she won't do it. And
What
that's
about
the
the
question that
SBA?
needs answered today.
But what about the SBA? Does the SBA have any way of being able to help, or is it only Brooke Rollins?
They can't. They cannot.
Help in any
This
way?
has to come out of, for an ag, it has to come out of SBA. They can come up with all kinds of different loans and stuff to help, but for an interest rate, that all has to come out of Treasury. And the fact that this hasn't been answered by Treasury is the question. That's the number one question that has to be answered. All farmers and all agriculture in America today need to know why you would say no to this, and no one's answering that phone.
What about RFK Jr.? Do you know if he's tried to talk with her about it?
Yes, he has, but he can't do it from HHS.
Okay. All right. Interesting. All right. Let's take a look at the next one, the next clip from Friday.
You want that fair shot and a level playing field, and I'm giving that to you. And I think I'm actually giving you much better than a level playing field. I'm giving you a field that goes like this. Makes it a lot easier for you, the things that we've done. And to further help farmers recovering from the Biden catastrophe, we use money taken from tariffs. The tariffs, we've taken in hundreds of billions of dollars from the tariffs. And as I said, we gave you $12 billion in farm relief. And that happened just recently because you were hurt by certain countries unfairly. And I said you were unfairly hurt, and we gave you $12 billion, and that made up for it. I'm also asking Congress to quickly.
He says he made up for it. Okay. We know. All right. We're going to move on.
Yeah, we've talked about that one.
Yeah. We're going to move on. The next one, Producer Ron. Thank you.
Pass the new farm bill. And today I'm promising to request additional farm relief for our great patriots in the next funding bill. So we have you taken care of in both instances, and we're pushing very hard for the new farm bill. The Democrats fight us. I don't know the Democrats fight us on farm bills, and they always have. They are not your natural politicians.
All right. What do you have to say about that, Steve?
Brian's got plenty to say about the farm bill, but I'm going to say my side of the farm bill. So whenever I was in DC before Brian, what I said is that they needed to move the SNAP program out of the USDA. That's WIC, that's EBT cards. It's all that welfare style stuff. I said they need to move that to HHS because Bobby Kennedy wanted to make America healthy again, and people were using those things and going in and buying marshmallows and, Coca-Cola products and Fruit Loops, right? So I said, move it under HHS, let them have that program and move it under there. I said, because the SNAP program is 80% of the farm bill. This is what most Americans don't realize, is that the farm bill is 80%. It should be called the food stamp bill. And now in the SNAP program, and see, here's the problem. Trump's giving all this stuff and says, we want to get this farm bill done and get it all approved, but you can't find the literal numbers. Back in the fall, it looked like to me it was going to be $1.5 trillion just for the SNAP program part of the farm bill alone. Okay. That's 80% of the farm bill. Now he's talking about this E15. We're going to expand E15, which E15 is hard on chainsaws, lawnmowers, all that stuff. We don't like it. The farmers don't like the E15. We don't want that fuel running in our equipment. And that is part of the farm bill. That has nothing to do with food. And that looks like to me that's about 7% of the farm bill. So really you have about 13 to 15% of all the farm bill money is only really about food.
Wow. And I remember when we started talking about the farm bill being shocked. In fact, there's times that I've thought we should just call it the Walmart bill because pretty much all the money's going to Walmart.
Coca-Cola makes $50,000 a week out of the SNAP program. Coca-Cola makes $50,000 a week.
I'm surprised.
I thought that was a day. I thought that was a day, Steve.
Maybe it's a day. Maybe it's a day.
Okay. I was
Yeah.
going to say. Okay, let's move on. Let's look at the next one.
Hey, we're looking for new ways to support our farmers, reduce your costs, and to help lower the price of food for the American family. Last month, we issued a major new rule declaring that farmers have a right to repair your own equipment. Can you believe that one? And that action will save the typical farmer up to $30,000 on major repairs. I mean, I heard about this. I said, you got to be kidding. You don't have the right to fix. These guys can fix anything, but you didn't have the right to fix your own equipment.
Has that really been fixed?
Well, we don't know for sure, but the right to fix the equipment now, they're not removing. Bryan, do you have any of those tractors with all that fancy, all that stuff on it? And did you have to have a repairman coming out from John Deere or whatever on yours?
Yeah, we do. We can't fix any of that, but you can't fix your pickup. You can't fix any of these things and haven't for 20 years. All these computers, if you do, you can. I can go down to the store and buy the most expensive computer and hook up to my equipment computer and find out, but then you got to stay certified. You got to keep up. It's like becoming your own accountant.
Yeah.
Well, and what happens is, what people don't realize is if you are going to become your own mechanic on your John Deere or Kubota or Ford tractor, you have to buy the software every year, the update. And that's where John Deere, listen, the farmers were up in arms. The corn growers and soybean growers were up in arms against John Deere because John Deere made more money off software, I believe, in 2024 than they did off selling tractors. And that's what he's talking about. So this is the thing is, it sounds like a really good thing, but no, it's basically big tech going to make a big bunch of money off software.
Kind of reminds me, I was just listening to a story this weekend where they were talking about these cars. We're all getting cars, and then you get this car and it's got all this equipment in it, but you have to pay for the subscription. And so they're saying, why are these cars being, sold that have these features and equipment in them, but then you have to pay for it, or it's in there and you had to pay for the equipment, but then you're not even using what you paid for because you have to pay an ongoing subscription. So there's, in a way, it's kind of connected, but it's very misleading is what it seems like. That what he's talking about seems quite misleading. And I don't see how a lot of farmers, small farmers, are able to stay up on all of that, fix their own equipment and actually do the farming business.
Well, and let me just say this, if we go back to Obama era on the Cash for Clunkers program, what most people don't know is they did the same thing with tractors. And I actually got old tractors running for some farmer friends of mine down there. And I said, what are you fixing this old tractor up? They said, because I'm going to do the Tractor for Clunker program. And I said, well, what do you mean? This old tractor will run? And he said, well, I can, if I put this in the program, they're going to give me $40,000 for this old clunker. And I get to buy a brand new John Deere with all the bells and software and whistles. And I said, well, I said, well, when you sell that out, I want to buy that old tractor. He says, no, they're sending a guy out from the government. They're going to take a cutting torch. They're going to cut a hole in the block and cut the cam with a cutting torch.
Wow.
That
why
happened.
so why did they do that? To usher in all the new equipment?
Well, because Bryan and I both could fix them old tractors.
Yeah, exactly. I hear my husband.
Not perfectly, but we could get them running.
Yeah, I hear my husband talk about that all the time. He grew up under the hood of a car. His father owned a Texaco gas station back when Texaco gas stations did everything, or Exxon gas station. And so what happened is remember when you used to have your car repaired, you took it to the gas station and they repaired it there. And so my husband grew up under, the hood of a car. And he says, nowadays you can't fix any of it. And so because of all the equipment. And so that's the same thing that we're hearing about with the tractors. And so it's very interesting. I did not know that the tractors were part of that Clunkers program. So that's, a new detail. Okay, let's listen and see the next clip from Friday.
When I was in Iowa recently, I met a man who was the chairman of John Deere, great company. And I asked him, I said, could I ask you a question? We cut a lot of the restrictions, almost all of them, on cars. What have we done for tractors and trucks and different things that you use on the farms? He said, sir, they never got to us. They never did that. I said, well, we're going to have to, that was about 2 months ago. We've worked very hard, and Lee is working on that. It's a top priority. I told him, Lee Zeldin, a top priority. So when you buy a tractor today, you spend 50% of your time fixing the environmental impact statement garbage that's on the tractor. In fact, I buy a lot of things that having to do with farm equipment, where I own clubs and other things. And I said, give me 10-year-old equipment. Do you have any 10-year-old equipment that hasn't been used yet? And whenever they had it, I would buy it, because it was much better than the new stuff, which has so much environmental nonsense on it that it ends up costing thousands of dollars more to produce, and it doesn't work well. Too complicated. And then you'll get somebody that is a farm worker, and he's looking at heavy computerized environmental equipment, and you have where the tractor will turn off if the environmental equipment isn't working. It was an automatic turn off. It did absolutely nothing for the environment. It cost you $6,000, $7,000, $8,000 a machine. And to save fuel, many of you are working over massive deposits of fuel. To save a quarter of a glass of fuel, this much, just a little bit, they'll have 2 extra computers in it that never worked. And I said to the head of John Deere, is this a good thing or a bad thing? He said, sir, you have no idea how bad it is. It's made our tractors so complicated. You need a major degree from MIT in order to turn on a tractor. We want to go back to the old way, sir. And I said, I agree with you 100%. And we are working very hard and very quickly to get rid of the horrible chains placed on tractor suppliers. That's a beautiful tractor.
All right. Do you believe that, Bryan?
No, I don't. I mean, I don't know. He said in the very beginning that they didn't get to the tractors. John Deere doesn't want to go back to old ones. They make a heck of a lot more money working on all these sensors and stuff that don't work in the new ones. They make their service calls. You know, John Deere, if you go back and listen to their story, they almost went broke. I don't remember when. Farmer told me this, either in the 90s or in the 80s, because their tractors were so good, nobody bought new ones. They just kept buying parts, and the old ones just ran and ran and ran, almost broke the company. And then they learned how to get into this 1-year warranty stuff and get people to trading and buying new ones. And then they keep adding all these sensors and computers to them so you can't work on them. They make a lot of money doing this. So I guess, no, I don't buy that at all.
What about you, Steve?
And I'm going to take this on a different angle, because I'm going to prove to you that he's lying with his own farm bill. Okay.
Okay.
In the farm bill, what they're saying is that if you buy and go more AI and go more technical on your farm, it's in the farm bill. Okay. That the big, Silicon Valley tech companies will reimburse you 90% on the equipment that you buy that is more AI and more technical. They want robots on your farms. They have a big brand new one, which I love, the big weed zapper, bug zapper machine. I would love to have one, but the cheapest one is $250,000. Well, I promise you, I'm not laying underneath that thing, working on that thing. You can just imagine what thing probably go off on you, So the guy that's going to work on that, he is going to be an MIT guy, and that's what he is saying. His farm bill is proving that it is a lie, what he's saying.
Okay. Tennessee Spicy says, why does he ask big money John Deere instead of asking the farmers?
He only talks to big money. That's his constituents. Did you hear his speech last week where he'd rather talk to losers like the farmers than talk to very smart people, because then he has to hear how great they are, and he would rather talk to losers and talk about how great he is. And so I listened to that whole speech and what he's saying, and it was like, I can't believe you're actually saying that to a group of farmers and thinking we're that dumb.
All right, let's take a look at the next clip.
So Americans love our farmers, and to make it easier for consumers to choose products raised by ranchers like Michael, we recently announced a brand new food label. It's Product of the USA. I love that. Product of the USA. We have another one called Made in the USA. That's better for a car. I like U.S. product for the USA. I hadn't heard that, but it's good. They want the USA product. When Americans see those words in grocery stores, they'll know that it was raised, harvested, and processed by the greatest farmers and ranchers anywhere on the face of the earth. You are the greatest.
Okay, so it's my understanding that this is a new program. And so he's announcing it. Sounds like this is brand new, that his administration has worked on this and it's just been recently launched. So, Steve, is that true?
Well, listen, Brian, y'all, Remnant Angus Ranch, they do label their products. I don't know. What do y'all have, Brian? 40 products, 50 products? You do label.
Yeah, we have to label ours. We go through this. It's voluntary. We sell meat wholesale to grocery stores who don't want our label. They want to sell it as their own label. This is a funny, they want to sell it just as their own. That's the interesting thing is, you can call the biggest, I guess, group that gets away with mislabeling food is the local group. So let's say you have a restaurant back there near you, Michelle, and you like going there and eating there because they say they source their food from the local distributor.
Mm-hmm.
The local distributor can buy his meat anywhere in the United States.
Sure.
And he can sell it to you, and it's called local. And I know that because I've had guys do that to me. We have a guy that bought meat from us, bought meat from the big four packers. And I said, do you want me to send my labels to you? And he said, no. We want to put our own family farm label on that. Everybody thinks it comes from us. We can make more money on it. We sell more that way. I said, yeah, but how do you, it's not local. And he said, it doesn't matter. People think it's local. People think it's raised right here. And as long as I get it from a local distributor, I can put my own farm name on it. So that happens in restaurants, grocery stores, and the push behind this product, the USA, is, and I have friends that run big packing houses. I've been involved in the big packing houses and learning how those systems work. I talked to our grocer here this week about this thing. I said, okay, tell me how this affects you. And he said, it does. We don't label anything now. Anything coming from the United States can come from anywhere, but I can still put my grade stamp, USDA grade stamp. I can put USDA choice, USDA prime on there. People think that comes from America. That's not an origin stamp. That's a quality grade. And the people who push the product to the USA are saying that is a source stamp. It's not. It's just a quality grade. And so it's still confusing. We could go in and anybody can voluntarily label their meat today. Anybody can.
All right. So Dean is saying product of the USA doesn't mean it was made in the USA.
Well, today I have not found, and I have looked and looked and looked at every grocery store across the country. I have never seen product of the USA. What people get confused most of the time is they see that USDA grade stamp, like USDA prime, USDA choice, and they think that's a product of the USA. They see the inspection stamp that's down by all the numbers and the weight and stuff and the barcodes, and they say USDA on there. They think that comes from the USDA. It just means it was inspected by the USDA.
Sure.
And so to say where that comes from, if you do want to put a product we put ours on there, Reminisce Angus beef, we're proud of it. We put it on there and we go through the painful efforts to label that so everybody knows where it comes from.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. All right, the next clip.
And thanks to your hard work and incredible productivity, we're slashing the prices of key staples for American families. The cost of cheese, butter, potatoes, and fruit, many, many other products is lower today than when I took office. Eggs are down, as an example, 60% from when I took office.
All right, Steve, do you believe this?
Well, here's the issue about this. Nobody is believing. I mean, we don't have to say he's lying. Anybody who's going to the grocery store knows this is false. Okay. And the issue is about lowering these prices. Well, fuel, everybody must understand. Brian will tell you this. I'll tell you this. farmers understand this better than ranchers understand this better than anybody. The world runs on diesel. And when diesel is high, everything is high. Your lipstick, your fingernail polish, your water hoses, everything. If it's not made from diesel or petroleum products, it's hauled by it.
All right, Bryan.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, my grocery bills just continue to go up. And I know his war on beef and saying we're going to bring beef prices down and ranchers don't have a clue what he's doing and stuff. He's saying he said in that speech that beef prices are going down. The winter beef prices have been at record highs. They didn't drop down to a year ago. Boxed beef was around $269. Today it's somewhere in the 360s to 372, 374 all winter. It's $1 a pound higher. It's still in. And so we're coming into our spring where beef prices are going to go up again, and they'll cross $4 again. They may hit up to $4.25 this year. They're not coming down. And beef shouldn't come down. It's the most nutrient dense food on the planet. It costs a ton of money to get it to the grocery store, and it's cheaper than most other items in that store.
Well,
let me just say this too about cheese. Most people don't know this, but one of the ways they do make cheese cheaper is they use a synthetic rennet brought to you by Pfizer. And
yes.
rennet it's made from cow stomach, right? It's the scrapings on the cow stomach because of what they used to do it. And that was always available and it's always been that way. My wife is 5th generation dairy. Her dad, they made cheese at the dairy, sold it to the public, and that's how they made it. But now Pfizer, 90% of all cheese in America has Pfizer rennet in it.
Yeah, it's a problem. And there's probably, it's my understanding too, that a lot of so-called cheese has plastic in it and it's not good. The whole thing's just not good. I've gotten to where now I don't buy any meat at the grocery store and I'm not buying my cheese at the grocery store either. I'm getting it from a small goat farm and getting goat cheese. And so they sell a number of different kinds of cheeses. And so we get that. But a lot of people, I do say a lot of people are not going to be able to afford that. Where I get my meat at the from friends who have a farm, and they're raising those cows and treating them like and feeding them God's way and all of that. Well, most people don't have a friend who started that back before COVID, and most people don't know a goat farmer who makes cheese. And if they did, it's expensive. It's very expensive. And so, this isn't something that everybody can do for one reason or another. And it's very frustrating when you hear about Pfizer being involved in our cheese. No wonder why you see so many people that are saying, hey, I've had my blood looked at underneath a microscope and it doesn't look good, and so there's something going on, whether you took the shot or not. Many people are showing that they have what was in the shots in their body, whether they took the shot or not. Okay, let's take a look at the next clip.
Rural economic benefit, create an estimated 100,000 new jobs and massively increase our nation's energy supply. It'll come right out of the farms. In addition, to help bring down grocery costs even more, today I'm pleased to announce that the Small Business Administration, that's Kelly, is opening up massive new loan guarantees for farmers and food suppliers, including vegetable farmers, grain farmers, and seed farmers, cattle, pig, and poultry producers, grocery wholesalers, and many more. So if you're in the industry, Kelly, you better get ready. You're going to be inundated, right?
All right, Bryan.
Yeah, why would they? I don't know what that is. We've worked so close with the SBA. I would think if they came out with something truly phenomenal, the guys that I've been on the phone with weekly would have shared something, and they haven't shared anything. And I need to look it up. I'm completely unaware of this. And why is the SBA having helping farmers? Where's the USDA in all of this? That's the United States Department of Ag. Why are they silent on loans?
Yeah, and the thing about it is too, I talked to Richard Kingdon 2 weeks ago, and he's one of the top guys that are at the SBA. I mean, him and Kelly talk daily, and this is news to me. Okay, Bryan and I have been talking to SBA. We've been talking about farm plans, what they could do. We wanted the Secretary of Treasury to run this new plan for what we were talking about in the PED plan, because it was going to be a lot easier for SBA to do it and just get that way, the food stamp thing and all that. We wanted SBA to be involved in it because you could have more people working on this project in order to help all agriculture, all business, just restructure the whole financing. And this is the first we've heard of it. If it is, it's got to be pennies on the dollar. What is it? $400 million. This is what this is what people don't understand. When you throw out these terms, 12 billion, 400 million, 1 billion, this is nothing, folks. It right now it would take $700 billion a year in order to change ag. That's what it takes, $700 billion as of today. If you want to change ag, and we have the money, well, they're printing the money. Well, just print it. Just print more of it.
Yeah, right. Xander's mom on YouTube is saying Pfizer in the cheese industry too. What? And
yes,
so,
ma'am.
yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay, so let's take a look at the next one.
We're going to get it done. But from Minnesota to Mississippi, we're lifting up our hardworking farmers and ranchers and growers, and we're putting more money in American pockets. We're going to prove that the golden age of American agriculture is right here and right now. And I want to ask, just if you would you come up and say something? Because I'll tell you what, come on.
All right. So Steve, unmute him, Ron.
Bryan, tell me, explain to me the golden age of agriculture. Can you explain this to me? Because I have no idea what the golden age of agriculture really is.
They haven't defined it yet. They keep talking about the golden age of agriculture, and I keep watching what they're doing. And it's, if you're in the business, if you're in the industry and you understand what's going on,
yeah,
I keep hearing President Trump talk about the golden age. He keeps saying we're entering into the golden age, but yet, I mean, last I've checked, prices are high, with your groceries, your gas. I don't see, every time I come outside, I see the trails in the sky, and I know that little ones are being taken to doctors' offices every day and still getting shots that are giving them autism and other issues that they'll deal with for the rest of their lives. So I don't really see the winning. That's where my issue is. And so, and where I keep thinking, I'm starting to smell skunk here. Something's very, very, very off. And so, Steve, do you have anything you want to add to this?
Yes, I do, because here's what, if you're listeners, if you don't get anything out of what we said other than the fact that Trump is lying, okay, you need to get that part down. But what people really need to understand is, if you want to see what the golden age of agriculture really looks like, in 2025, we lost 17,000 farms and ranches. All right. Y'all with me on this? We lost 17,000. Guess how many brand new farms were put in 2025? Guess how many?
Zero.
So if you want to know, what the golden age looks like, if they did that in the first year, no. And Bryan, you and I talked about this, because you and I kept trying to get in front of the last thing that you and I needed. Was we needed to get in front of the Secretary of Treasury and President Trump, because we pretty much had everybody saying yes. But Brookline's doesn't like me because I criticize her because she destroyed all the farms and ranches in the small ones in Texas. Okay. She destroyed my farm in Texas when she was down there under Rick Perry. But that was our last thing. If we could have gotten that all put together, we would have changed our plan. What we put together would have changed agriculture for the next 100 years. And we could not get in front of him in order to do this. And so when he's talking about a golden age, no. And not one thing. There's not one thing. So we know now, Bryan, that our input and what we've said and our ability to get in front of him is over, because he's done for this term. And while he's in the presidency for these next few years, we have no more say or input, because he didn't take one thing we said.
Well, I think the frustrating part for me is when they look you in the eye and they ask you for help, and you show them something that can help them, and they agree and they say, yes, help us implement this. And I have said, I'll do the legwork on this. I just need some doors open. And they agreed to do it. I don't have time to have my time wasted. And that's why I said, when I when they found out I wasn't just a useful victim to push the narrative, they quit communicating, but they asked for my time. They asked for policies that would work, that would outlast administrations. And when we demonstrated that and we showed them that and they walked away from it, it's very frustrating and very telling that there's nobody interested in making any real changes in DC.
What do you think is going on with RFK? You know, we hear that there's all this stuff, but and by the way, I want to back up the no Cokes and the no, I don't know, candy or whatever they've taken off of the EBT thing. Well, they're still allowing them to buy cereal and all the other stuff that's completely junk in the grocery store. So, I mean, you're still going to be able to buy other things that are no good for you either. That's, you know, just completely trash. So I don't really see that as a win. I don't really care. I think it's just a headline. It's a distraction, and it's nothing really that's that big of a deal. They're still buying other trash. I mean, whether you buy a Coke or you buy one of these little fruity juices that people can buy, these Hugs or whatever, it's still trash. I mean, you see what I'm saying? So you can still buy chips. You can still buy, it's such a joke. And then, you know, we hear that it's going to be 2 years before you can take red dye number whatever out. And so of the food, it's like, what in the world is taking so long? This is insane. And by the time that happens, they'll just rename that red dye to something else, and it's not really being removed, you know? And so to me, I'm looking at where are the tangible things? What can we point to say that this is being a success? I'll even go back to Hurricane Helene. We did a lot of raising money and a lot of trips to North Carolina, Swannanoa specifically, which is right out of Asheville. We raised over $255,000 worth of food and supplies and help through the show. Our viewers did this. And so we went up there numerous times and delivered all this help. And do you know that the money, the relief money that has been delivered that was given to Asheville, North Carolina, which then also helps the Swannanoa because they're kind of independent. So what happened is Swannanoa is watching money, I'm talking over $1 million being given to a golf course to be repaired. So that way, you know, tourism. And then you still got people living in their homes, living in their cars and living in tents and living in homes that are damaged. And so where is the real help even with that? You know, he flew to Swannanoa or flew to North Carolina, went to Swannanoa and stood literally feet from where I was going every month and said all these things, and yet nobody's got any help and still have the same problems. There's no tangible help, even to those people. I mean, it's disgusting. And so that's where I'm looking and going, it's been over a year. And we're all going to be paying taxes again. You know, see what I'm saying? So where's the tangible help for the people?
There's no golden age in agriculture for sure. And I'm not so sure there's a golden age is there a golden age in real estate right now? Maybe,
no.
Maybe if you're the guy selling a data center
the land for it. So what's happened in real estate in the Nashville, Tennessee area? Okay. What's going on right now is that real estate is sitting. And the reason is because all those investors came in, and now there's this market in Californians. And so there's different people that have come in, and now there has suddenly been a flood of real estate on the market, and they're sitting. And so that's what the current situation is right now. People are having a hard time moving the real estate. So we'll see. It's difficult because during COVID, the Nashville, Tennessee market was great. And you just had to deal with crazy people thinking they needed to wear a mask, and just, you know, home sellers that had ridiculous requirements to be able to show the home. But as far as, you know, real estate, a lot of people want to think that real estate is the same throughout the entire country. And it's just not. You can have, even in one city, you can have one neighborhood down the street not doing well, and then around the corner, one that just can't build them quick enough. So, you know, it's not something like, you know, a lot of people want to go, oh, it's going to be rainy all over the area, you know, in the district or in the area in the city. It's just not the same with real estate, and people don't necessarily understand that. Okay, we have one more clip from Friday's show, or Friday's meeting in DC on the South Lawn with American farmers. So let's take a listen to the last clip here.
Ranchers and everybody else having to do with this very special world that you live in. And Brooke has really been a star, and I want to thank you very much and say a few words. Thank you,
sir. Thank you. Oh, my goodness. Sir, the first thing I want to say is when we had that unexpected conversation about this job, November 21st of 2024. I've often said that sometimes you have plans for yourself, but then God and Donald Trump redirect your plan. 1 year in, I can't tell you.
All right, guys. And so God and Donald Trump had different plans. Which one of you want to take that?
Go ahead, Bryan.
You picked me on that one. Yeah, I mean, that can happen. God can change your life. You open the door, you let him in. I mean, he is your life if you're part of that. So I understand that. But man, the things that are being talked about that have been done and the impact of what's been done are two completely different things. And I wish with Secretary Rawlins and with President Trump, they would just be more engaged. You know, it seems like what I've seen, I think the frustrating thing for me is, like I said, I keep going back to the victims. If you're willing to be a useful victim, it's a great distraction. Everybody loves to run to town with their pitchforks and shovels and be upset about something. And most Americans love to be upset about big corporations. But the things that are being done to change that and rectify that and redirect the course of agriculture are not being done in a meaningful way. And they have the tools to do it in a meaningful way. And I think maybe the frustrating thing for Steve and I, we've never been this close, never had this much opportunity, and never been asked by the people who can make these decisions and help change the direction. It's frustrating to have been asked to help, have given very sound plans, and see nothing happen. I mean, just headlines. Like I said, it's just headlines, and headlines don't do anything for us. They're distracting us with the farm bill. They're building data centers. They're printing money to build dating centers. The only thing President Trump wants to farm is our data. He's partnering with big tech and giving us $12 billion and laughing in our face about it. It's not okay with me. I don't appreciate being used like that when we can really help people. We've come up with some things that can really help people, consumers and farmers and ranchers, and it's not being taken seriously.
Okay.
Well, and Brooke Rollins, you know, when I was a boy, you know, the devil was always on cartoons in a red suit. So I'm glad that Brooke Rollins wore a red suit. So the issue is what people don't realize is how much I know about Brooke Rollins and how involved it is and how y'all see how they fawn over one another. Oh gosh. See, Bryan and I don't do that stuff. When we go to DC, we talk just like we're talking now. And we give solutions. We're busy. We want to fix America. And if they would have listened to Bryan and I, and I'm working on another plan, but it won't be finished for 4 months. But to do this ourselves as the American people. But this is the way they do. But Brooke Rollins destroyed the small farms and in Texas. And whenever President Trump said that he was going to put her as head of USDA, I like to lost my mind because I said the main thing, exactly the policies. She was director of policy under Rick Perry, and the Go Texan labeling. She was all about that, and she did all that. She, you know, did all, and the Go Texan labeling and all that stuff. It destroyed the small farms in Texas. And I said, and whenever last summer, and I told AJ Richards, Ryland, who's kissed the ground, and all these guys, you know, and they think I don't like them because I'm against them. And I'm against them because the way they're going and what they're saying is the wrong way. And I told them, what's the chances of the guy being in farming when their farm was destroyed and the labeling and all this stuff is exactly what they did. And I said, Brooke Rollins, what you're going to see is you're going to see farms disappear on a national level, just like they did on a state level in Texas. And that's my 10 cents. And it's worth all the 10 cents it is, because I lost a lot of, well, I was foreclosed on by FSA. I took FSA to court actually and won my case. But FSA auctioned off every single thing that I owned except my house and my dirt. I had to borrow a car. So, you know, when you're talking to Bryan and I, we've been not just around the block, we help pour the sidewalk. Okay.
I understand. Whistle01 says, I was a system engineer, decided and wanted to turn what was happening around, joined my local farmers market, spent all my effort growing high value food. They only steal from you. He gets food tested by them. Testing is how they control all the good food that goes where they want, is my observation. It's a fixed system. They wait till your product is ready for market and wipe it out. Happened to me, half a year of work wiped out.
Mhm.
Do you know anything about that, Steve? With you
Yes, I
doing
do.
vegetables and that kind of thing? What is he talking about?
Yeah, so I can tell you this because I was the first range fed pork guy. I was a pork guy too, had 67 sows. I was an open range pork guy. And what I wanted to do is I wanted to do my own sausage. I was going to take all my animals, grow them up to a certain weight, 300 to 400 pounds. And then I literally had a processing center that was brand new built by USDA in my area for supposedly it's in Coke, Texas, Coke. You can look it up. My farm was in Como, Texas, and this plant is still there in Coke, Texas. I was going to have my own sausage done. Well, whenever I got it all done, got everything approved, and whenever I was getting ready to take my sausage to the grocery stores to show it, I was sabotaged. And it's because there are big players in this game that don't want anybody else's product being on the shelf. And you're a small guy because they don't want you in the game.
Okay. So they wait till the last minute and crush you.
Yep.
Okay. All right. Interesting. I want to play a video that I saw. There's a clip that I saw that I want to ask you about. Everybody's like, well, why would they lie to us? And what's going on? And where's the end result here? And okay. So I saw something, coincidentally, I say, but it's not really. It's our steps are ordered of the Lord. So this starts out with Catherine Austin Fitts speaking. Catherine Austin Fitts is an investment banker. And for those of you that don't know, she is the former Assistant Secretary of Housing and Urban Development for Housing under George H.W. Bush, which is Daddy Bush, Bush 41. So I want to make sure everybody understands who she is. And then also there's a little bit after this, but take a listen to what she says. Listen very carefully. I can't believe I found this clip.
So the idea is we get rid of farmers, we kill any naturally grown food, and we engineer food in manufacturing plants and laboratories. But I assure you that those guys are not eating this.
Bill Gates is one of the familiar corporate faces, and he's investing heavily in the food revolution under the guise of avoiding climate disaster.
Cows alone account for about 6% of global emissions. So we need to change cows.
And while he talks up the perceived problem, Gates is pouring money into the supposed solution: artificial meat and genetically modified crops. Crucially, anything that is invented or altered can be patented.
The core of his agenda is he wants to do in agriculture and pharmaceuticals, by the way, what he did in the computer world. True power, massive, incalculable wealth comes from owning intellectual property and then monopolizing it. They want to make it so that every single organism that is used for food is ultimately under their control, either through the 3D printing or through this genetic manipulation. So we're moving now very rapidly toward this totally centralized food system where a tiny handful of corporate interests in bed with totalitarian government will dominate the food supply so that there is only a giant public-private partnership with total control of all food, all energy, and I believe water will be next.
All right. Did we lose Bryan? It looks like we might have lost him. Okay, so Steve, this is interesting because, you know, as we know, anything from nature cannot be patented. And what they're saying is that Bill Gates is wanting to do what he did with the computer industry. He wants to be able to, you know, take over when it comes to our food. I've even connected some dots today. Like, why do they demonize cows and say that the gas is killing the environment and all this? I mean, nonsense, really. And so when you look at this, she's saying, look, be rest assured, these people are not eating the lab grown meat. They're not eating this junk. And so what do you think about this? I'm afraid that it's gone way further and more advanced than what we even know.
And I've been saying this, Michelle, since we met. I've been saying we're headed to lab grown. That's why Bryan Mussard and I, that's the reason I wanted Bryan to come on, with you, because us together, is really we had the solution. We gave them the plan. We really did. We gave them the plan for the vegetables, the processing. I even had $2 billion to start the processing. And that's the issue is Bryan and I, that's why we're so disappointed. We have President Trump. The President Trump that's in there now is not the President Trump that was in the White House before, because they're totally different guys. He's been chipped by Elon Musk, or he's eating lab grown something. I don't know what it is, but he's different. And the issue that, we've got RFK, you have Brooke Rollins, you have all these Republican people. We have the House, we have the Senate, we have all these Republican governors across the country. We could have changed this nation. And we only have one other way. There's only one other way. And that's, I'm working on that plan. It'll be introduced in about 4 months if agriculture makes that long. But lab grown food, that's where it's headed. And they want to control everything about it. And if they can grow it and patent it, then you can't infringe on that. And they have to get rid of agriculture. If you get rid of agriculture, then you can take over the nation completely.
Well, you're going to have people's jaws dropping when you say that Trump looks different and that this isn't the same person. Are you saying that this is the different president than when you started going to the MAHA meetings?
He's not the same. Something's wrong. He doesn't even talk the same. I mean, you just go back and play any clip from his first administration and the way he talks now, everything is different. I mean,
that's true. Mm-hmm.
I mean, just look at the way he talks. I mean, we're going to save American farms. I was hopeful. I mean, God woke me up on November the 9th, 2024, said, Steve, I want to write a farm plan for the entire United States. People says, well, you waste your time because it's always going to. Listen, I did what God told me to do. I'm not responsible for the results. I'm responsible for being obedient. Okay. And the issue is that I'm here today, sitting here saying they had a chance, and maybe just God had it that way so that they'll be, when judgment comes, that they get the judgment, because it's not like they didn't have a plan. And I'm the only guy, and Bryan is the only guy. We're the only two guys that wrote plans for the entire. We're the only two.
It's interesting. All right, let's take a look. So over the weekend, Marla Maples, who is an ex-wife to Donald Trump, has a Instagram post that I come across. Producer Ron, if you would, please. Thank you. So Marla says, I'm in California this week, and while there is still so much beauty here, the skies tell another story. Street, crisscrossed, unnatural. I watch as a plane climbs higher and higher, leaving a long white trail behind. It doesn't disappear. It lingers and lingers, then slowly spreads, becoming a cloud that casts shadows across the beautiful land, our land. We should be able to look up, breathe deeply, and trust the air that sustains us, not question what we're breathing. Our air, our water, our land, our health are sacred. Our earth is not something to experiment on, ... And then she's got another image. There you go. And so, one of the things that you've said over and over and over is that let's not even focus on, the chemicals and stuff that they're spraying on the land. Let's not even get in that fight. Let's worry about the stratospheric aerosol injections, because if we don't get that taken care of, then none of it matters. You've consistently said this from the very beginning when I met you, Steve. And so she's talking about it. When you've been to DC, have you ever heard any politicians? Have you heard RFK Jr. talk about getting rid of the stratospheric aerosol injections? Are they talking differently or even discussing these things when they're not in front of the camera and you're just there in DC and you're talking with them one-on-one?
Well, usually what they say is, oh, yeah. Oh, yes. And that's pretty much it. There's not much conversation. And actually, RFK sat here in my barn here and face to face, and I handed him what is called the Mystic Bill, and it's a state bill. But what I specifically asked RFK to do, when he went back to Washington, D.C., I said, I don't want a bunch of federal bills coming down the pike. There'd be a major bunch of nonsense and headache that would spend a bunch of time and money but never accomplish anything, because you needed President Trump and you needed somebody else is running our country, just by the way. Okay. Somebody else is running it, because there's no way, if RFK can come here, I can hand him a Mystic Bill and I tell him that all we need HHS to just throw a ton of environmental impact studies on Rainmaker and all these things. But what most people don't realize is in the NDAA bill that just passed that Trump signed, there's $900 billion in there for, military and all that stuff. And what you have to realize is there's a ton of money in there for well, it's called weather operations now. That's the new phrase. And see, that's the thing. And all the agencies have money in it. That's another thing that people don't realize. And so, no, they don't. They agree with you, but no, they don't talk about it.
All right. So I have another clip. I want to show it to you. I think this is maybe a farmer like out of Canada. It was hard to figure out exactly where he's at, but let's take a look and I want to ask you something about it. A couple of things actually about this.
So like most farms, my farm runs on three things: hopes, dreams, diesel. Now I ran out of diesel today, as it happens. Just never run out of hope. So I called my diesel guy to fuel the tank up. Until further notice, I am rationed to 100 gallons of anything, gas, heating oil, and diesel for 30 days. To put that in perspective, a couple of my tractors got 90-gallon tanks on them. So that's about 12 to 15 hours runtime in one tractor. That's about a day's work. So with that going on and fertilizer jumping, hopes and dreams are going to have to carry a lot of the load. They told me it might clear up in April. I hope it does, but scary times we live in, especially if you're a farmer.
Okay, so he's talking about diesel you're talking about 12 to 15 hours. That is scary times. If you can't work your land and you have loans and you've got to do all this is insane. So if he's in Canada, then I think about even the food that we import from Canada. How is that going to impact us during the next few months, quite a few months? So can you talk to that, please, and share with us what your thoughts are about what's going on?
Well, if you really wanted to cripple a nation, if you really wanted to hurt and you wanted to starve a nation, just make diesel so high or so scarce that people couldn't get their crops in or couldn't get their crops harvested or can't ship it. Let's face it. I was just in Pullman, Washington. I live about 25 miles from Washington State. Was in there yesterday. Diesel was $6.49 a gallon over there because the state puts $1 tax on it. So it's $5.49 here, $6.49 there. If this hits $8, if you want to starve a nation to death, this is a good way to do it.
Okay, very interesting. One of the things that Bryan said to me, by the way, he lost signal. He texted me and said, sorry that he lost signal. I want to talk with you about a couple of different headlines and things, but one of the things that was interesting that Bryan had said to me is he goes, the people who investigated Epstein Island are in charge of our agriculture. That's interesting way to put it. Well, we see how that worked out.
Well, has anybody been arrested in DC? Has the Republicans or Democrats, has President Trump done anything about it? FBI, any of that? No. And listen, I'm going to say this. The United States of America has been taken over. Now, I'm going to say that I probably know about the little country the size of New Jersey is probably having a big role in it. But somebody else is controlling our nation and somebody else is controlling our skies. And we, as MAGA and MAHA, nobody fought harder and spent more time than Bryan Mussard. And Bryan probably spent more time than I did, actually. And myself and other people too, and get zero. This is how you've been taken over. Now, what we do about it as a people, everybody just needs to take a vacation. For 30 days, everybody just needs to go to the house. But you got to have food to do that. See, that's the thing is everything is central about food and water. Everything. Even if you're in a yeah.
Yeah, that's why they're after it. Okay, Robert Malone. There was a headline last week that said that he had resigned from the CDC. What do you know?
Okay, so I've been fighting weather modification for 2 years. And so some of the top doctors in Washington, D.C. got behind me, made videos for me to support me in what I was doing, because they were seeing aluminum in people's blood, barium. They were seeing health. That's the reason they got behind me, is
A
because
lot of doctors got behind you.
a lot of, like 200 doctors got behind me.
Big
200
names.
big names, 200
Yes.
of the top doctors, Dr. Sherry Tenpenny, Dr. Ryan Cole.
Yeah.
I mean, Dr. I can't even pronounce her. I call her Dr. Mav. So I sent a message out and said, okay, what's the scoop on Dr. Malone getting fired? Because I don't know. And they said he was no good from the beginning. And this is what I want everybody to think about. Whenever they have to have this good cop, bad cop, right? They have to have, because just think, what if everybody was always on the bad guy side? But you got to have somebody always saying, yes, we're going to win. And you'll notice that's what happened in this time of President Trump and Bobby Kennedy and Brooke Rollins. Oh yeah, agriculture is great. No, it's not. It's a lie. They're lying to us, and they're lying to us on a scale that it's disturbing. But they're lying about everything.
It's interesting, though, that you say that, because a little while ago I noticed a comment where someone said, why is President Trump always talking about Joe Biden and not being accountable for what he is or isn't accomplishing during his presidency? And that's very interesting that you're talking about that, because it's always about some kind of a, fighting. And so he's been president for 15 months. Why does he keep trashing Joe Biden? Can we talk about moving forward? And, you're either Obama and Big Mike are still walking around. So, it's like Joe Biden, I don't know if he's in his basement or what's going on. I don't have a clue about it. We can't prove anything. A lot of people think they know or hope they know, but, people can get on all day long and claim all different kinds of stuff. And that doesn't mean that they know for sure. And so you can't hang your hat on something that you can't prove. And so, it's just craziness. But so, he's talking a lot about Joe Biden instead of focusing on some of the things that are or aren't going on. Why aren't we hearing about Hurricane Helene? Why aren't we, those survivors and what they need and what isn't being done? Like, I think a lot of people think out of sight, out of mind. They think that, North Carolina's fine, and they're not. You see what I'm saying? And so there's a lot of stuff like that going on. And he's talking about the farmers, the American farmers, but yet what he says, it doesn't seem to be the truth, especially hearing you and Bryan explaining quite a few points from Friday's, gathering that he had at the White House with America's farmers. So very concerning, and we'll see what happens. But Steve, thank you for being with us today and answering our viewers' questions and pointing out some of the discrepancies from the talk that he had on Friday versus what you know to be true. And I appreciate you sharing your experiences working with MAHA and about why you're no longer part of MAGA. Thank you, Steve.
Bye-bye.
Okay, so lots to cover. There was a lot taken into account. I think that the video also that we showed that started out with Catherine Austin Fitts, I think that video kind of tells us what's really going on here. And so there's a plan, and the plan is to take over the food and then eventually the water, like what Steve and I were talking about that he mentioned. And they talked about that even in the video a little bit. It makes me think about the whole Q thing and all that, where they talked about how, watch the water and all that kind of stuff. Who knows? I think that was a psyop personally, but we'll see. And I always say time will tell. Time will tell. All right. I want to remind everybody that tomorrow we're going to do an educational video or a documentary. My 3 children need me. It's kind of crazy timing that they all 3 need me. And we've been going through this process with the health-based dentist. And let me tell you something, it's been an expensive process. And then we kind of got a big shocker last week about something with one of the kids. And now they just all 3 happen to need me tomorrow. So I'm going to be gone tomorrow being mom. And then Wednesday, of course, we always do an educational video or some kind of a documentary. Jay is having a baby tomorrow, Jay with ATKN, so he won't be able to do the teaching with his teaching series. We knew that up front, that he may be having a baby in the middle of it. So I'll be back live on Thursday and Friday, and I'm very excited about those 2 shows. So we'll have those as well. Today, at the end of the day, I think what's the most important thing is truth. And that's what we're trying to get to here for you is just trying to uncover and discover whatever that looks like. The truth is the truth, no matter what. People will say, well, I'm going to be on your show. Can I talk about this? And I always say, I don't care what you talk about, as long as it's the truth. That's what I'm looking at. So anyways, let's see here. Thank you, Steve, Brian, and Michelle. God bless you all. Thank you. True Michelle last week said that EK is, oh yeah. So on YouTube, it says last week, Scott McKay said that, I don't know, EK is, I'm thinking you mean Elon Musk. Erica Kirk. Okay, yeah. See, this is crazy stuff. And so how would he know? And again, it's just rumors and stuff it's just pointless. Okay, in my opinion. And so we're just not going to do that here at the Michelle Moore Show. We're not going to do that. And so I think that's it. I want to remind everybody. At the beginning of the show, I told you the wrong date for the ending. I was worried about people who maybe need to get paid and want to take advantage of the sale for Godly Granny, and forgot that I had extended it through Thursday when we had launched it. So it's through Thursday, the 2nd of April. 11:59 p.m. Central Time. And so that way you've got plenty of time to be able to get your order in and take advantage of the 5% reduction on the new releases. Did you see that we released liquid laundry detergent? And with that, we released a new scent, which is fresh linen. And then, of course, a dryer ball bliss oil as well. That's fresh linen. And so y'all it's so dreamy. I love the fresh linen. And so we've got that. Look, you all asked and I listened and got to work. I have had for over a year now, everybody asking me, when are you going to get some stuff for the home? And we have more things coming, very exciting things coming. I can't wait for you to find out and see what we have done. It's really exciting. Also, we released a rinse aid for your dishwasher. So if you got hard water, you need some help, I'm telling you, my glasses look better than new. I can't believe it. I just can't believe it. And it is a fan favorite at the house with all 5 of us. Everybody loves it. And so, Flashmore hasn't really weighed in. He doesn't care, but everybody else loves it. So, all right. I hope that you enjoyed today's show. Even, again, the truth is the truth, whatever that is. And that's all I'm working to uncover, discover with you and help you to know as much as possible. So, but remember, above all things, keep first things first, and that's your relationship with Yahweh. All right, we'll see you right here next time on the Michelle Moore Show. Don't forget, I'll be here live on Thursday. All right.
There aren't a lot of reasons to use Godly Granny products. There's every reason, because every time you twist or flip a cap on something from Godly Granny, you're voting no to chemicals and yes to common sense, but without all the electronic voting machines. With Godly Granny, there's no toxins, no chemicals, no endocrine disruptors, no cancer-chasing filler. Godly Granny is a small batch, made-to-order, deeply naturopathic wellness brand. Founded on biblical truth, formulated with pure purpose, and handcrafted by saved folks who know that freedom doesn't come from fake lavender and phthalates. Go to godlygranny.com today. Be sure and use the discount code Michelle10 at checkout to receive 10% off your entire order.
Hi, I'm Linda Bamber Olson, the inventor of the Wave Watch, the world's first frequency therapy watch. It features over 1,100 targeted frequencies combined into 150 playlists for ease of use. These sounds are acoustical and they move through your body, through your skin and your bones. You don't necessarily have to hear it. As each frequency goes through, it can be realigning, revitalizing, reconnecting, and even rebalancing your body all the way to the cellular level. So that's why we have so many testimonies for aches, ADD and ADHD, allergies, colds and flu, dental, emotions, headaches, joints, kidney stones, nerves, organs, skin health, swelling, tremors, vagus nerve, and so many more. Use this code for $100 off when you purchase the Wave Watch. Thanks for learning about frequencies, using them, and supporting the Wave Watch.
Hi friends, it's Michelle Moore. And when it comes to protecting your retirement, I believe in taking smart, steady steps. Bank of America analysts call gold the ultimate safe haven. And when it comes to precious metals, I trust Universal Coin and Bullion, the official rare coin and bullion dealer of my show. They have been named the best in their industry, both nationally and regionally, by leading organizations. Consider a gold IRA, a time-tested way to diversify your portfolio with real tangible assets, which lets you move a portion of your retirement savings into physical gold, helping protect your wealth from inflation, market swings, and economic uncertainty. And Universal Coin and Bullion makes the process easy. From rollovers to delivery, they walk you through every step, even if you have one with another gold company. Protect what you've worked so hard to build from the team that I trust, Universal Coin and Bullion, at 800-321-8700, and make sure to tell them Michelle sent you.
For Michelle's social media links, go to michellemooreshow.com.